Yeah, hello. Welcome
Hello.
to another episode of Live here on Keystroke Medium. I am your host, Josh Hayes, here with Chuck Manley. Scott's sleeping.
As well he should.
He's sleeping right now. Welcome to Live on this great Monday morning. Oh, look, we've already got a meme. First comment of valor from Facebook. I like that. Back after a couple of weeks of not being on. We took a hiatus last week, and it was a nice, relaxing change of pace, I think, last week. Actually, the first comment of valor came from Facebook, but actually the first comment was Rick Partlow on
Partlow Golf Club.
He gets the golf clap of approval or appreciation this morning. Thank you. Welcome. Silent Wolf is here. William Tyler Davis is here. Welcome. You'll have to excuse me. I've got a little bit of a head cold this morning, and so like I'm talking, but I'm also, my head feels like it's you get that balloon feeling,
right?
You're like kind of zoning out. That's kind of like me this morning. But hopefully, maybe that'll make for an interesting show. Like I know we ramble anyway, but this could be like we take the ramble to a whole other.
Well, that depends. How much cough medicine have you had?
I need to take some cough medicine. Go
fire up a hot toddy real quick, and I'll tell Dirty Lennox or something.
I've got some whiskey over there. Just put some whiskey in the coffee.
There you go. Irish it up.
Man, I've been doing that Alka-Seltzer citrus severe cold and sinus. I don't know if it actually helps, but I do it anyway. We had a guest scheduled, but I think there was a snafu again. It makes 2 weeks now of snafu scheduling, so hopefully we'll get that worked out. Today we're going to talk a little bit about challenging yourself in your writing life. It's November, which means it's National Novel Writing Month, and so there's a lot of people out there trying to get that 50,000 words. That's 1,666 point whatever words a day for the challenge. And it's interesting because I know we know several people that just do that anyway. It's instead of just aiming for
mutants.
Right. There's a lot of authors that do double that a day.
Oh yeah.
And so it's interesting to watch everybody go and try to do the challenge. And there's a lot of people like the National Novel Writing Month is just me every day.
Yeah.
So I know that, Chuck, you've been having some struggles with your writing over the last few months, and so have I. And so I wanted to kind of have a sit down talk and talk about the different things that we're doing to challenge ourselves and get the words in and get the story written. But I also want to hear from you guys too in the live chat if you've had some struggles or any ideas or suggestions or things that you have done in the last couple of months to improve your writing or just to challenge yourself and do something different. I've kind of added a different writing style. I don't know if you'd call it that to my regime, I guess.
Kind of a tool in your toolbox, really.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about that a little bit today too. So also, here, hold on. So, and everybody that watches the show should know that we've launched Keystroke Coffee several months ago. And as a matter of accidental clicking, I've got a unscheduled bag of Roast of Doom in the mail. Let's see if I can.
Is that what you sent me?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I sent you.
Is that the dark roast?
This is the French roast.
Oh, okay.
For roast of, if I can get the, I don't know what's wrong with this. There we go. Roast of Doom. It's the French roast, and because of that inadvertent order on my part, we're going to be giving this bag away today on the show to the live viewers. So if you're watching live today, November 9th, then and you would like an opportunity to win this bag over the next hour in the chat, put hashtag coffee, and then Chuck will get your name on our roll sheet. And here a little later, we will roll a D20 to see who picks up this free bag. And then if you win, just send me a message or an email at and we'll get your address and all that stuff, and we'll get the coffee sent to you. So all right, let's talk about stuff. Let's
okay, the first thing I want to say is that Rick has commented that he's down to 3,000 words today and he feels like a slug. And on behalf of everyone, I want to tell Rick to shut the hell up.
Yeah. That's funny. Rick, it's funny that you talk with Rick and he does so many words a day, and then it's interesting to see other authors like him that that do 4 or 5 like Devin C4.
Right.
He writes like 8,000 words a day, and then there are days when he's like, oh, I only did 5,000 words today. And you're like, man, I'm lucky to get a couple thousand. And but it's cool that there are people out there that can push those.
No, it absolutely is, and I'm just screwing with Rick. But it's just, you wonder. I think if you're a person who is predisposed to comparisonitis,
yeah, right.
People like Rick can be your kryptonite, because right. I mean, and God love him for being as productive as he is. It's awesome. But I think if you're somebody who's a little unsure and stuff like that, you see somebody doing that and you're just like, oh, I'm gonna go crawl under a rock.
Well, it's interesting too, because I'm a member of the 20 books to 50K Facebook group, and for a while there, I don't know if they don't allow it anymore, or if it was not allowed temporarily, but people would post their earning figures, and there'd be people post like, I made $300,000 this month, or whatever the number is,
right? Whatever huge number.
And while that's motivating for some people, it's extremely demotivating for other people.
Extremely discouraging for some folks. Yes.
And so they temporarily, or I think maybe permanently, didn't allow people to do that. But what's interesting is that that's a possibility, and so working towards that goal is a realistic goal for people. And to get there, you have to write the words. So I think talking about getting the words and struggling to get the words is a good thing to talk about in November, since we are in 9 days into National Novel Writing Month. So as far as updates go, I am still working on Tranquility, the collaboration with Devin Ford, and it's coming along. I've got about 10 chapters, I think, left to edit, and then the book will go off to our actual editor, and then we'll start on book 2. And I think it's coming along really, really well. I'm really enjoying the story. I think we're sitting at around almost 100,000 words, and probably it's going to edge out at about 120,000 for the first book. And I think that's a good length. I think by far this is probably the longest single book that I've worked on. And I think that the way that we've presented the story is really cool. And it's interesting to see how many iterations the story went through, and I can't wait for when the book is done and we can kind of talk about it in kind of a spoiler episode, to go through the original ideas and how those ideas changed. And it'd be cool to talk about the evolution of the story in itself, and talk about the evolution of ideas and the changing of ideas, because sometimes it's like the Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. The book that he published is nothing like the original novel that he published. And it's interesting to think about that, because a lot of authors don't like deleting words because words are sacred. But it's interesting because the original book that he wrote was also a large book, but the published book that he actually published is completely different. So he basically rewrote his entire book. And we didn't rewrite the entire book, but we changed a lot of things that affected how the book panned out, and that meant changing a lot of things in the second draft that we didn't have originally. So it'd be kind of fun to talk about that. I'm working on a new project. Basically, it's not super secret, but the idea behind it is, and it's interesting. I had uh, uh, the idea for the story about Halloweenish, and it kind of rolled around in my head for a while, and decided the other day to try to do some voice transcription while I was in the car, and just kind of talk the idea to myself. And it's that idea of telling yourself the story before you're actually writing it. So as I basically just had my iPhone and the app and then my AirPods, and was just talking to myself while driving. And it's about a 2-hour drive from here to Claflin. And so I think I got maybe about an hour and 15 minutes total time of recording on there, and then on the way back as well. And I had about 4 total files, and I've got Dragon Professional on my computer, and it transcribes audio files. And so dumped those files in. However, one of those files got corrupted somehow, and so I missed out on, I don't know, it was about 20-30 minutes of transcription. And I got about 4,000 words total out of all the other words that came in, and I thought that was really good, for just driving in the car, not doing anything else.
Right.
And so I decided to kind of take the next step, and I know Lauren and Kayleen had Michael J. Sullivan on a few weeks ago, and he talked about dictation and transcription, and he has a whole book on dictation. And so I got the audio recorder that he recommends, or that he uses. It's an Olympus. I don't remember the model number off the top of my head, but it's a digital recorder, rechargeable battery. It's got a USB plug built into it, and you can plug a microphone into it. And one of the microphone that I found on Amazon, I think it was about $20, is a powered microphone, and so it's noise canceling.
And it's a lapel mic.
And it's just a little clip-on lapel mic, and so I can have that there, and I test it. It's not like this microphone where if I snap over here, you can't hear it on the sound. It's not that good at noise canceling, but it is better than the AirPods, because in the AirPods you hear the background car noise really well, and it's a little better than that. And so after I got that, I spent I can't remember what day it was. It was either a Monday or a Wednesday. It might have been Wednesday. And that morning I had to take the daughter to school, and then I had to run to the store and get some stuff. And then that afternoon I went for a walk around the neighborhood, and it all in total, I got about 4,200 words that day, just on that project alone, just from dictation. And it came over really well. I mean, there's obviously a lot of edits I have to do onto it. And I didn't do like a straight narration dictation where you're dictating as if writing, and it comes through.
You weren't doing the punctuation and all that stuff.
Yeah, I was basically doing the same thing I was doing in the truck, where it's telling myself the story. And but at the end of my last file, I did do the punctuation for a couple paragraphs just to see how well it came through in the transcription, and it worked really well. The quotations and commas and all that stuff. And I got about 4,200 words. So in total, I got almost 12,000 words on that project without touching the keyboard, basically. And then the other day, I was able to open up a new Scrivener file and then start actually drafting, and that was pretty cool.
So were you able to do like a lot of cut and pasting?
Yeah, well, I did. Not yet, because it was just kind of the opening where I was just kind of doing. And this is the thing, we talk about planning and plotting and pantsing. and it's almost like I was pantsing while I was transcribing, and then it became a plot outline. Because then
So you were really kind of just doing the pre-work in the dictation, like telling yourself, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is who this guy is,
right,
da da da, and then using that to get your drafts on track.
Yeah. Like,
okay, cool. Yeah, that makes sense.
Like, for instance, I would do I was always walking. Like, you can even see sometimes where I'm like talking to myself and not even dictating the story. I'm like, maybe if they did this, and that shows up in the transcription,
right?
Maybe if they went here and this happened,
and then you stub your toe and you're like, "Fuck that! Just goddamn it!"
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of people know I do a lot of notes by hand, and some of those notes, I actually write out questions to myself, like, how do they do this, or if they did this, what would they do? And so I would do like a new paragraph and then do a question to myself, and then start answering that question with lines, because you do new line, new paragraph, and then it formats that way. And so there's a lot of places where I was like, what if they do here? And then I list out options to myself. And then when I think about it, I can kind of expand on those ideas. And so that was really cool. It was an interesting new way of doing things. And, kind of circling back to the point of challenging yourself. I haven't really done that on a large scale this year, and I've been super unproductive this year because of, COVID and then having kids and all that stuff. And I want to get back to where I was basically in 2018 and the beginning of 2019, where I was smashing words. I mean, there's a month at the beginning of 2019 where I got like 95,000 words in the month. And
nice.
Yeah. I was super productive, and I was working on like 3 stories at the same time, and I need to get back to maybe not that level of productivity.
I don't think, unless you're Rick, I don't think you can. That kind of level of productivity is something I don't know that you can maintain it like
it's not really
long term.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Out pretty quick.
When you got a family and everything like you do, man, it's especially your kids are still very young.
Yeah.
And they need a lot more attention. So, I mean, it's totally understandable. Scott McGlasson says that if you dictate yourself too often, it'll chafe.
That's true. But if you call your recorder the stranger, it works out really well.
How much did that recorder set you back, in case folks are interested?
Well, I can link it in the description. I think it was like,
do that.
It was like $80, I think.
Yeah, that's not bad.
It was relatively cheap. Let's see, Amazon. Wasn't horrible. And the cool thing is like, it'll do like separate files, and then when you copy them over, it has the dates and times of when you recorded it, and so you can see which ones you've brought over and transcribed, and then depending on how long the file is, like for instance, my longest file was about 20 minutes long or 45 minutes long, and it took about 15 minutes to transcribe. And while it was doing that, I just kind of was doing some formatting in Scrivener for the other stuff. It was pretty easy. Like, 'cause I like Scrivener, obviously. You can bring the transcription out as a Word document and then drag that Word document into Scrivener, and you don't have to do a whole bunch else. Let me see. It's an Olympus WS83. It's got an 8 gigabyte storage. Let me bring
that's a lot of audio.
Yeah, I think it's like it's like 2,000 hours of something.
Yeah.
Go. I want to. Okay, let me get the link here. And then, why are you? There's sometimes when I don't like.
Why are you?
Just do what I say. Oops. Don't click on that link because it's got a period in it. It's not that link because my computer's dumb. Oh my God. It's like my computer has a cold. Audio.
The Irish coffee's kicking in, folks. This is entertaining.
I almost think I need that. And then it would give me a reason.
Hey, listen, all kidding aside, a good hot toddy before you go to bed, that always helps me when I got a bad head cold.
Very true. Well, I've got a lot of more things we can talk about, but Chuck, why don't you give us an update and then we'll kind of circle around.
Really, Same old over here. I'm trying to click away on Jack Dark Book 2, making slow progress on that. Kids have been busy. My son's band director tested positive for COVID, so that kind of threw all the schedules out of whack. And my daughter's softball team, about 2/3 of them had to self quarantine because they had a big breakout at one of the schools. It's just crazy stuff. Keeping me busy, things around the house, and just every time I try to sit down and write, something interrupts me. But I'm chugging away. And honestly, to speak to the topic of productivity and how to streamline things, I kind of came to the conclusion that my biggest hurdle is distractions, obviously.
Yeah.
So what I've tried to do recently is I've been trying to focus on the distractions that I can control. I mean, obviously I can't, control what happens with my kids and my wife and everything like that. But I have removed any kind of entertainment link from my PC, like, to video sites and stuff like that. I've got the Freedom app on it now, where it will, for my writing time during the day, it cuts off my ability to surf, to open up Steam where my games are,
right?
Things like that. And I've got it to where I can't really turn it off easily,
right?
So I won't be tempted to just quit and go let myself be distracted. And so I'm hoping that that by doing that, I will kind of put myself in a position, because I always, like, if I let myself get distracted and I realize I've let myself get distracted, I always feel guilty. So I know I'm doing the wrong thing when I do that.
And what's the app you're using?
It's called Freedom.
Okay. Yeah. I've got the same one. I used it. It's off now, but I used it exclusively when I went full time in 2019, and I set it up on a timed basis, so it would do an automatic, like from like 4 a.m. to I don't know what it was. Like,
mine goes from like 6 to 1.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And it's basically the first half of the day. Because the second half of the day, that's when I got to go get the kids from school and so on and so forth.
Right.
But
I really need to turn that back on.
Yeah, it's very. Were you using it when you were so productive in 2018? Or whenever it was you were making the 90,000 words a month?
Yeah, I was. And
there might be a correlation there.
Yeah, I actually need to I had a deal where I would put my phone across the room, like on a counter.
Yeah. I put mine on silent and turn it upside down on something soft, so even if it vibrates, I don't hear it.
Yeah. I need to, like, basically turn off all the notifications except for text message, and then set it across the room and turn the notification thing on. So that way, if I get a text, then it's not usually the only people that are texting me are people that I need that message from. And so I need to get back into doing that, and maybe I'll start doing that this weekend. And
I was basically just turning my phone off, and then my wife found out I was doing that and got mad at me, so I had to. But so I'm really just trying to focus on cutting down on the things I can control, and just trying to work around the things I can't. I also realize that, I get so frustrated when I get interrupted, and I'm sure you feel this way too. Like when you're really starting to get right into it, and then something pulls you out of it. I mean, it's kind of, I don't know about you, but I get very irritated about that. And I found that I was getting frustrated, and I was just like, fuck it. I can't work. I'm going to do this other thing.
Yes.
And that's a self-destructive attitude. That's not a productive attitude. So I'm trying to limit the things that I go, I'm going to do. I'm taking away the other things.
Right.
And I'm hoping that I can just kind of learn to adjust my mindset, so that if I do get interrupted, I just take a deep breath and get right back into it as best I can. Because I'm so far behind on so many things. My audiobook, Awakened, is still getting reviews on Audible, and I keep getting these messages from people you know, and they're asking when the next audiobook's coming, yada, yada, yada. But what that did is in answering those, I would say, hey, I've got this to do and this to do and this to do. And I also realized I've kind of allowed myself to fall into that trap of chasing the shiny thing. You know, I've got like 3 series I haven't finished simply because I would do a book or 2 in one and say, oh, this other idea sounds so much fun. And I run off and start that without finishing that first one. So now I've got all these things out there that I need to finish. Right. And that's kind of, I realized that was a discipline issue with myself too, that I'm going to have to. So, you know, right now I'm just focused on finishing the commitments I have. And I'm still allowing like I've been making notes for a private investigator thing that I had in mind, strictly, you know, mainstream thriller mystery stuff with no fantasy elements to it. But I'm allowing myself to sort of indulge other ideas strictly in the sense that I start making notes about it and doing some pre-work and maybe naming characters and forcing myself to be satisfied with that much of that shiny new thing and trying to put my attention back on what I need to finish. Because like I said, I've got like 3 different series that people are asking about that I need to get back to. So,
you know, I kind of thought the same thing where I'm thinking of different, like, so we're talking about the productivity of me doing like three projects back in 2019 and looking at what I'm doing now, where I was just doing Tranquility for weeks on end and upping that, trying to think of, okay, what other project can I work on and what's basically worth my time,
right,
to work on and not produce words on a project that maybe won't do me as good as something else, financially speaking. And so I was going through a whole bunch of opinions, like or options, like trying to think of, do I do a follow-on Terra Nova series, or do I brainstorm something completely new, or do I do a new Valor book, or something like that, and just trying to kind of play with those ideas and see, like you're saying, which one strikes my attention more than the other.
Right.
And for now it's this other secret project that I'm working on, and it's a pretty fun story, and you know, it's kind of like the thing where you take risks and see what happens. But I've also done a little bit of trying to get back into reading every day. And I've been doing a lot of nonfiction reading. One of the books I got, we've talked about it a lot on the show, is the storybook by Robert McKee.
Mm-hmm.
I got the audiobook, and it was interesting. Listen to the whole. It didn't really pull very much information that I didn't already know out of it. But it's at the very end, pretty much literally the last chapter. There was a bit about, and I don't know if I can find it. Oh yeah, here it is. There was a bit about process, and this is what kind of led me into the transcription thing, is and it's kind of like a snowflake measure, kind of what I do already, but it just kind of put it into context, is doing basically a progression of drafts to the final, where the first one is just figuring out what the story is. The second one is kind of fleshing that out a little bit more. And in the process of screenwriting, instead of just like sitting down and writing the dialogue, and kind of figuring out the story from there, he's talking about doing a 1-sentence description and then basically telling yourself the story, like Josh is going to go into the kitchen and make himself a cup of coffee, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And then off of that premise, start working on the dialogue. And that way, while you're working on the dialogue, you know what the point of the scene is, and so you're not fishing for the point of the scene while trying to write dialogue. And that was interesting from a novel writing perspective, because even in some of my outlining process, I'll be like, oh, this is a really cool dialogue thing, but how does it fit into the story? And then sometimes I can't use that dialogue, or sometimes I can't even use the narrative because the idea for the scene changed halfway through. And so it was kind of an interesting, and I'll have to dive deep into a little bit, maybe on a different episode, and talk about that, because it kind of gave me a little bit of new perspective on getting the story down.
Well, it kind of makes sense because I mean, like setting the scene before you add the dialogue, because so much of what you say and how you say it is going to depend on where the characters are and what they're doing.
Right.
You know, like if your main character is in the locker room with the boys, he's not going to talk the same way as he would if he was at a wedding or whatever, you know, in church, something. So that kind of makes sense to approach it from that aspect.
I think too, kind of, there's a lot of people that, you know, talk about world building and telling your getting to the point where you know so much about the world that you only put, you know, 5% of that into your story.
Right.
And for me, I've been in a position where I sit down and think about my writing time as precious, and so I think I need to be doing actual drafting while I'm sitting in front of the computer. So I don't want to do like some kind of discovery character writing where I learn about the character and all that. And I found,
Right. Sounds like the dictation is great for that, though.
yeah, because like I was thinking about character in this new project I was working on, and really thinking about how can I do stuff differently. And in Valor, I had a couple of really fleshed out characters, the first Valor book. And then in the subsequent books, I really didn't do that because I was working on kind of the more of a plot aspect of the book. And when I sat down to write, I didn't want to kind of spend the time to flesh out all the other characters and flesh out their motivations and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know if I've talked about Aaron Sorkin before and his screenwriting process, but he looks at scenes as intention and obstacle, and then he looks at the characters and what they want and what's standing in their way. And as I was kind of coming up with ideas for the story, I was only really thinking about the main idea. I wasn't really thinking about what the characters wanted. And so
Right.
dictation kind of helps me. I can basically go on a walk and talk for 5 or 10 minutes about just a character, and to me it doesn't feel like I'm wasting my time because I'm not actually in front of the keyboard drafting. I'm just kind of walking around and doing other things. And so I can work out character motivation, I can work out even character description and stuff like that, and then transcribe that and have it in the document. And if I want to use it, I can, but if not, I just leave it there as kind of background noise to draw from. And
Yeah, and I also think that having stuff like that laid out, like you know, like character studies and little character profiles and things, if you're stuck on a scene and those characters are in it, going back and kind of refreshing your memory of that character, sort of trying, you know, using that stuff to get back into their head can help you get over those hurdles where you find yourself wondering, well, what does this guy want? What would he do in this situation? What would she say in this situation? So I think, you know, and I always try to make that part of the pre-work that I do. I at least do small character studies for any new characters in a book when I start out, for exactly that reason. For when I get stuck, I have something to kind of fall back on to oil the gears, as it were.
And he, like Scott McGlasson says, dictation is great for acting out both sides of the conversation, particularly an argument. And yeah, that and you can do that without actually doing the dialogue. You can just kind of out the argument, and I like that a lot. One of the other things I had been doing is listening to House to House. It's kind of a bio novel of a staff sergeant in the Ranger in the Army. He's a Ranger. Or maybe he's not a Ranger. Maybe he's just infantry. I think he's just infantry. But it's kind of like a biopic or a bio novel. And it's his story of their battle in Fallujah during the Afghanistan conflict. And really interesting perspective on battle and death and all that stuff, and it's interesting to listen to this guy, and he's actually telling it's a true story, but it's written kind of in the form of a novel, and it's got kind of
creative nonfiction.
Yeah, and it's given me a lot of kind of brain fodder for the story that I'm working on by way of getting a feel for the action and description and feeling for a fictional story, but it's true. And so
Right.
that's been really helpful to me. And I just listened to I read The Terminal List by Jack Carr, and it's a modern day kind of revenge thriller. And what's interesting about that book is it's a New York Times bestseller, and the guy is an ex-SEAL, and it has done really, really well. But what's interesting is
I'm sorry, when you say the guy, you mean the writer or the character?
the writer is an ex-SEAL,
Okay.
and so is the character is a SEAL too. But the guy is actually a SEAL. And kind of what a fun fact about this book is, because he was a SEAL, he had to submit it to the Department of Defense so they could do
Right. Make sure he didn't put anything classified in there or anything.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
what's interesting is they found some things in there that they thought qualified. And instead of taking it out, he left it in and just redacted it. Like while you're reading the book, you see like it's going, and then you see these black lines covering the
That's pretty clever.
Yeah. And that was pretty cool. The strange and the cool thing about this book is he's a SEAL. He's really knowledgeable about tactics and weapons and things like that. And one of the things that struck me about this book, and one of the things I want to try to do in this other project, well, in all my projects, is he had a scene where basically a terrorist was ambushing him, and he's in a major city, and he's coming out of a coffee shop, and this terrorist is attacking him, basically shooting at him. And the action is the main character draws his weapon that's in a small to back holster, and does a really good job of describing an index shoot. And what that is basically you pull out and you're firing index, which means you have the gun here at your side and you're shooting before you're already punched out.
Right. Basically armpit shot.
Yeah. Well, yeah, at the side. And that's it in law enforcement. That's one of the training tactics that we're taught if we're in kind of a, not a quick draw situation, but a situation where we've got to get rounds on target quickly. That's one of the things that we practice is basically drawing and then basically just turning your hand. And so you're basically at hip level, you turn your hand and you're indexing. So wherever you're looking at, where your body is squared,
your torso at that point. Yeah, I think we called that a short draw back in the day, something like that.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
He did a really good job of describing it. And then, of course, he punches out and he puts rounds on target. And he has a couple of scenes that are like that. The interesting thing about this book is it does everything that modern storytellers that are teaching storytelling tell you not to do. And so there's a lot of head jumping, and the mystery of the story is explained to you in like chapter 4. And so the entire book, the reader knows what's going on and that the character doesn't. Yeah. And so for me, there wasn't any tension on what's happening.
Yeah.
It was focused on how he's going to accomplish his thing. And that was a really interesting format, but to me, it was kind of like meh. By the time I got halfway, it was kind of like meh. The kind of new and shiny was worn off. And then the last basically third of the book are chapters where the main character shows up, kills the person he's going to kill, and then moves on. And then it just kind of.
Yeah. I mean, well, and basically you just described the difference between a mystery and a thriller.
Right.
Mystery is, the classic whodunit. Even the reader doesn't understand what's going on. A lot of times the character knows more than the reader does until the end. But in a thriller, the reader typically knows what the bad guy is up to, and the tension comes from, oh no, is he going to catch the good guy? Is he going to get away with it? How's the good guy going to get over this hurdle or whatever?
Right.
And well, do you think that meh aspect came from him breaking so many of the rules?
I think so. And I think for me personally, this probably happens because I'm a writer and because I look at the story and look at the structure of the story and see where I could do it to increase the overall tension. Like basically not revealing the mystery to the reader until the character knows.
Right.
And that would have propelled me, I think, a little faster through the narrative, trying to figure out why certain things are happening and who's behind it, instead of how the main character is going to deal with it. And I think that's just me personally as a writer looking at the story. But apparently in that specific genre, that's cool. Like a lot of because you look at the reviews and everybody loves the book.
Action, if you're writing an action novel, mostly those readers mostly just want to see the good guys shooting the bad guys.
Right.
They want the action, and all the other tension moments and stuff like that are secondary to that. It's very cathartic for readers who enjoy that kind of thing.
Right. Well, and I think so. The point of me telling that whole thing is looking at my own writing and going, for me personally, maybe that's not what readers want. Like, for instance, like Valor. I wanted Valor to be like a really deep, intellectual, kind of intelligent novel. And the first one did really well, but it didn't, the read through didn't translate to 2 and 3. And then looking at my reviews for like Hale's War and the Terra Nova series and having stellar reviews and a lot of read through, and then looking at it going, okay, this is what my readers in particularly want, is more of a kind of a Michael Bay action thriller.
Right.
And so that's what I'm kind of trying to work on with Tranquility, and what I'm trying to do with this new project. And that actually makes it a little easier to write, because I don't have to do like a really deep dive into it. I can just have really good, well thought out characters, a well thought out plot that's more simple than not. And I don't have to worry about all the I can't even think of the word.
Emotional stuff.
Yeah.
I know the deeper character motivations and that kind of thing, and those can be, those can get tricky, and especially if you're writing for an audience that likes the, like you said, Michael Bay action thriller kind of stuff. That you don't see a lot of that in Armageddon or
right.
It's all right there on the surface. It's, you don't have to dig too deep into those characters. And if that's what if that's the audience you're writing for, there's nothing wrong with it at all.
Well, and that's the thing, like just figuring out what your specific audience wants. And it's kind of a hard thing to do as a new author, or as an author that's just putting out your own books, is trying to figure out where your audience is at and what they're reading, and then adjusting, because when it boils down to it, if you're not writing something that your specific audience wants to read, then you're not going to sell any book. And
honestly, and you're talking about it being harder for new writers, unless you do market research and stuff before you start writing, and I think most readers do it this way, is they just write the story they want to write and hope that the tribe will come to them.
Yeah.
And I think if you do it that way, you kind of have to have some books out there before you realize what your audience wants, because I'm kind of in that camp, because I don't, I've gotten, like I said before, I'm getting all these reviews on the Audible thing, and I'm starting to see what people like about the stuff that I've written. And, I wouldn't know that just from looking at the audience. And I'm not very good at writing the market anyway. I always put a slant on things.
Right.
So I think new writers, it's kind of just a matter of putting your head down and kind of just getting stuff out there and seeing what the reaction is and figuring out where you fit.
100%.
Unless you're just going to write to market, in which case just see what everybody else is writing and put your own spin on that.
Yeah. And that's not to say don't write what you want to write.
Absolutely.
But if you're looking at your own writing critically and saying, this is what I have been doing, but what's not working about it, and then kind of taking your ego out of it a little bit.
I think you have to. I think ego is the enemy. It really is. And I think that if you're going to do this for money, then you're producing a product for an audience, and you have to give that audience the product they want.
Yep.
And your ego can't be an issue. It isn't about your precious golden words. It's about giving people what they want, so they'll give you money for it.
100%. 100%. Let's see. Silent Wolf says he's asking what's the name of the book you're talking about. If you're talking about the thriller book, the name of the book is The Terminal List by Jack Carr. It's the first book in actually I can't remember the series name, but the book is called The Terminal List, and I think there's 4 out there. The second one is why am I drawing a blank, because I just bought it. Anyway, just Google The Terminal List. There's a TV show that's being produced on HBO, I think. It stars Chris Pratt, and they're filming right now.
Cool.
So that'll be cool to watch. And it's like I said, it's looking at what are people writing, and then adjusting kind of to that style, instead of just going off kind of blind and half cocked. JF Erickson says, "Hey, first time joiner here. Welcome to the live show and to Keystroke Medium, JF. It's good to have you here on the program, and it's always good to see new people. Always. Good to see people.
And I want to remind everybody, if you like coffee, type #coffee live audience only into the chat, and we will draw for somebody to get a free bag of Keystroke Medium coffee when the show's done."
Oh, he says, thanks, long-time subscriber. Awesome. Well, it's always cool to have a long-time subscriber, first-time listener. It's interesting. I can't remember where we were. This last weekend, if you guys didn't know, Amy Duboff set up a virtual con, science fiction and fantasy con, for this year, and it was this last weekend, and it was basically 2 full days, Saturday and Sunday, of different virtual panels, and I was on a couple. I was on a military.
Oh, that's cool, man.
Yeah, no, it was good. I was on a military sci-fi panel that I moderated with Jonathan Brzee and Dean Cole and Rick Partlow and Amy J. Murphy. Really good description, really good conversation about writing military science fiction with a very heavy deep dive into the military aspect of it. We covered a little bit of the sci-fi aspect of it, but it was more focused on the actual military version or military aspect of writing. And then I did a podcasting one with Lauren and Lefebvre. I can't remember. Mark Leslie Lefebvre.
Lefebvre, yeah, the formerly of Drafted Digital.
Yeah,
Kobo, that's what it was.
Yeah, I think he is Drafted Digital still.
No, yeah.
And then a guy named Tom, I think it's Tom Merritt, who does Sword and Laser. I'd never heard of the podcast, but I looked it up, and they're pretty big. He's actually a full-time podcaster, which is interesting because he does live shows every day and then does 4 pre-recorded shows a week. And
wow,
man, I was thinking about that. And like, I know how much work we put into the 3 shows that we have and everything else. And good God, I can't imagine. Like, if I wasn't writing, then it would probably be.
I guess if that's all you're doing,
right?
Then that might be workable. But hell, we were just talking about getting rid of distractions.
I know, right? Yeah. Well, that was a fun thing to do, and kind of reinvigorated my interest is the wrong word. Enthusiasm for the show. And seeing comments like from JF here and comments during the live show, and then even comments on our YouTube stuff, and you kind of get into the last couple of weeks, kind of been into a low rut where I haven't been motivated either for the show and or writing. And so seeing stuff like this and having that podcasting show and thinking about, what's our goal here and what are we trying to do and different things kind of got me re-engaged to do Keystroke and the show and push harder to get more work done.
Yeah, and that actually brings up an interesting point about the connection between creativity and feedback. Or I shouldn't say creativity, but productivity.
Yeah.
And feedback, because if I think a lot of folks, they need to hear, hey man, I'm enjoying your stuff, or would you, I think you're really good at this thing, will you talk to me about it? I think that a lot of people need that in order to feel like they're not just, whistling in a thunderstorm, because it just, they need to know they're not wasting their time putting all this time at the keyboard or at the mic or whatever, and that people are actually paying attention and do appreciate it. Because I think if you don't see at least some level of appreciation, you're going to wonder what the hell you're spending your time on. Why aren't you just, eating bonbons and watching Game of Thrones reruns?
100%. No, 100%. If feedback is good, and it's fun to get. It's interesting how many people message me. There wasn't a show this week. What do you mean there wasn't a show this week? I want a show, and I was like, oh, that's cool, because like you said, kind of. And what made me, I don't know, feel better, not better, but then kind of gave me a I don't even know what the word is, but we were talking on that show, and Mark Lefebvre, who's got a kind of a big following, and he's been doing it for years, talking about only getting feedback from one or two people, and that you have, say you have an audience of a couple thousand, and I noticed this too by a lot of, I've been doing a lot of YouTube watching from just YouTubers, kind of looking at engagement and that kind of thing. And say you have 1,000 followers, maybe one or two of them are going to comment or like,
right,
and that's pretty standard. And so that instead of being kind of demotivated about all that stuff, realizing that we are really good on track for doing what we want to do and having a really good engagement with the community, and that I love that. I think that we have a really good community here, and that motivates me, and has now motivated me more to kind of get on here and just ramble on like we're doing today. And it's always fun to get that kind of engagement from new listeners, and then people in the live chat, and also emails and comments on our YouTube stuff. That's really cool. I had something else that I had written down, but I think we've already kind of covered that a little bit. And it looks like, I'm trying to find, there was another comment in I'm trying to find the comment that I saw earlier talking about their process.
Oh, that was, I believe that was Corey. I think I know which one you're talking about.
Oh,
maybe it was Scott. Was it Scott? He's talking about his problem is discipline. Is that it?
And there was a comment right above that. Oh, here it is. Going back into a massive project to set aside 2 years ago, just reacclimating myself and reorganizing, and all the ridiculous notes of research I took all weekend. Yeah, that was that. It's interesting because that right there is kind of what I did while I was transcribing. And there was a lot of, I think, repeat transcribing. But again, instead of kind of thinking in visually, or not visually, but conceptually thinking, I'm not wasting my time because I'm doing the transcribing. And
I actually think that's a brilliant idea for like what I call the pre-work, the conceptualizing everything. I think that's a great way to do that.
Right. I and it's kind of like the feeling I get when I do the hand note taking. Who was on the show? It was Christopher Paolini, who was on Lauren's show on the writer's journey a couple of weeks ago, and they were talking about his process, and his process is a lot of handwriting note taking, but he does it kind of like he takes it to a whole nother level, where he's got these big, like, custom made leather bound notebooks, and then he has like some kind of a fountain pen. I don't know if it's you dip it in the ink and then write or whatever, but that's what it kind of looked like. There was a YouTube video I found that he was actually talking about doing that, and that kind of got me more interested in doing that kind of freeing work. I don't know if that's the right word to use, like writing it down. And
well, that is kind of free writing, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that I don't know about you, but when I do that like when I'm starting out raw on a new book, and and maybe I have a vague idea of what I want it to be, that stream of consciousness kind of writing that just sit down and whatever the hell comes through your head, you put down on paper or dictate, whatever, that kind of is what, it starts out as like the idea is there. I don't really have it. And there's like a dam between me and the idea.
Right.
And that stream of consciousness is like that trickle that's coming through the dam. And then the more I indulge that stream of consciousness writing, the more it erodes away at that dam. And eventually the idea in the book is there, and it's I think, just opening up and going nuts sometimes is the best way to fuel your creativity.
Well, it's figuring out the best way to tell the story and
Right.
figuring out the best way that to get all the points across in an interesting way. I meant to say here, JF Erickson says, speaking of which, Chuck, I missed your podcast.
Well, and that's actually an excellent example of what I was talking about with feedback, because the reason I did 40 some odd episodes of
story shots,
and and I was kind of running out of ideas because I didn't have anybody to bounce ideas and stuff off of to see what would be good topics to talk about, and that's why I kind of just let it slide to the wayside there.
Yeah. Well, and I was thinking when I was on that podcast panel, I was thinking of different things that I could do productivity wise that would get me in the mood. It sounds kind of weird, but to put me in a good mindset to be productive. And I did the Morning Hay show for a while there that a lot of people kind of enjoyed. And just kind of thinking of different ways to engage myself and other people. And so I'm thinking about bringing that back. I don't know if it's going to be in the morning or maybe in the evening. I've been thinking about doing some live streaming while I'm writing and having some engagement there. One of the groups that I'm in, we've been doing kind of an office, like a shared workspace type thing where if it's virtual, but kind of give you some real-time accountability. We do show up and do a Zoom call and kind of talk about, so we spend about 5 minutes talking about what we're going to do for the session and then mute each other and then leave the video running and then just write. And so that way, like me personally, I'm like, they're looking at me. I need to be writing.
Yeah.
I can't screw off now.
That's a pretty immediate accountability right there.
Right. So we did it. I can't remember. It was Friday we did that, and we actually did it for like 2.5 hours or something like that. And I got a lot of work done, and
wow.
it was pretty cool. So I'm looking at maybe doing something like that for the Keystroke group. Maybe having a couple sessions in the evening or afternoon or something.
I could get in on that if it's in the right time of day.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be a big thing. You show up and then you say, this is what I'm going to do. And one of the things you got to be careful of is spending too much time kind of chit-chatting, like at the cooler. Like, we had a couple of breaks where we spent, 15-20 minutes just kind of chit-chatting, and then we're like, all right, now we're just bullshitting. Now we need to get to work now.
We're avoiding it at this point.
It's like the boss walking in with his company. Yeah, I'm gonna need to get you guys to go back to work.
That'd be great. All right, so do you want me? We got 4 names here, partner. You want me to throw a D4 on this thing and see what happens?
Yeah, real quick. If you haven't typed #coffee in the live chat, do it now. And
30 seconds.
We'll do this giveaway for the Roast of Doom if you're joining late. Good morning, Lou. Lou Holston made it. Morning, gang. Welcome. And then my son Sean is watching from.
Hello, Sean.
Hi, Sean. How are you? If you should be doing schoolwork, I think, if you're watching the show. Jake Clifton Slater is here. Josh Chuck, I like what you do. And we like.
Well, thank you, Jake Clifton Slater.
Unity 151 and JF Erickson added themselves to the call. What's he talking about? Nerd.
Who's he talking to? Who's a nerd?
Who's he talking to? I'm
I mean,
interested.
there's a lot of those here. I'm just wondering which one he's referencing.
Interesting. Well, we're gonna kind of wrap
All
up.
right, we gotta do this.
Let's roll the dice. See who wins the coffee.
All right. And the winner would be Corey Gilliam.
Okay, I'll write that down. Corey, I think we're Facebook connected. Reach out to me on Facebook, DM me, and shoot me your address, and we'll get the coffee sent out to you. Okay, I wrote that down. Let me circle that so I don't forget. This is D4. Everybody that was in the live chat, thank you guys for coming and hanging out with us. Taking a week off and reinvigorating and coming back to the show strong is sometimes good. And also kind of reiterating the show. So we're almost done with season 5. We're coming up on the holiday season, which means we're probably going to have a couple of weeks or a few weeks where we're not broadcasting while we're doing family things and whatnot. So if we miss a couple of weeks here over the next couple of months, never fear. It's always tough when you're talking about getting families together and then also getting your writing time and having to schedule stuff around. So fair warning, we may have a couple of empty weeks coming up, but let's see, where's the calendar at? We do have a couple of interesting shows coming up. We've got the Parla Panidi brothers coming up next week to talk about the blood of Zeus. They had some issues. They were going to be on last week, and they had some issues, some last minute scheduling conflicts. So we're going to try to get them up next week at 10 a.m. Then at the 30th, we have Yurahanjaya Vijayaratna, who will come in and talk about his new novel, The Salvage Crew. Nathan Fillion did the audio recording on that. And then, oh yeah, when is that? Let's see. Is it on the calendar? I don't see it on the calendar. Oh wait, yeah, it is this week. It's this Thursday. Hey, Lauren, is that regular time? 8 p.m. Central. I think it's 8 p.m. Central. We're doing a KSM Family Feud with some of the moderators over at 20 Books to 50K. I think Craig Martell and a couple other people. Thursday, I think it's 8 p.m. Central. Walt Rebillard is going to be the host, and we're going to be doing a fun Family Feud themed or type episode. That'll be fun. It'll be a different change of pace.
I see here that Scott was referring to me when he said nerd. He says simply owning a D4 qualifies. Scott, I want to point out that I own a lot of D4s. That is full of dice, buddy. So I'm not a nerd. I'm a super fucking nerd.
Super nerd. We had a lot of people ask us about doing a KSM D&D thing. Maybe that'll be something fun we can do.
I would be happy to run something like that. We could use Roll20 or one of the other virtual tabletop deals. It's a big time commitment is the only thing.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I've been trying to, and I know we're kind of running over, but I don't care.
Yeah, whatever. Sure.
Yeah, I do what I want. One of the things you talk about doing is being productive, but not burning yourself out, and then allowing yourself to do other things that's giving your mind a break. And for me, that's been playing Minecraft, but also not getting sucked in and that spending all your time doing that.
Exactly.
And
discipline, really, we could just do a whole show on the value of discipline.
Yeah.
I mean, really,
100%. But I mean, it's kind of a good relaxing thing, and I've actually had a couple of days where I was playing Minecraft in the evenings or at night, late at night, and had a couple of good ideas. While because Minecraft's one of those games where you can just kind of zone out,
right?
And had a couple of good ideas, and then stopped and went and worked or whatever. Yeah, Minecraft. Jeff Erickson says we have a KSM server if you want to come play with us. Me and Shadow the Illustrator play on the server, and it's kind of a fun deal. She's built a couple big projects, and I'm working on an Oriental themed little village, which is kind of fun. And I don't know, it's a fun getaway. But anyway, we're gonna wrap up the show, and we will be back next week to talk to the Parla-Paganini brothers. I need to practice that so I don't screw it up on the regular.
I need to watch that show before then.
You know, it was a really good show. I watched all the episodes last week. I actually just finished it a couple of days ago, and the only negative thing I'll say about it is the sound, is the music design of the show.
Oh, it's not great.
It's, and I watched it on my phone, so it might be a little different watching it on TV, but also I watched it on computer too. But the sound design, it's a anime, right? And it's drawn in that style, which is great. But they have kind of a chorus, a vocal chorus music where it's very high pitched, but it's almost just like too much. It's almost distracting because it's during the battle scenes, it's very loud. And so there were a couple times where like, man, this is super loud, and you can almost not hear what the characters are saying because the music is so loud. And I think you could have very easily either downplayed the music a little bit or taken it out, and it wouldn't have affected the show. But other than that, I thought the story was great.
Yeah, that. I'll have to watch it for that. I'm not a huge fan of the anime drawing style. It's just never appealed to me.
Yeah,
but I do like a lot of times the stories that come with those anime shows. You know, like I've watched, like Akira and Guyver.
Oh gosh, Akira is one of my favorites.
Princess Mononoke, and then of course Appleseed, and what's the one that Scarlett Johansson did the movie of? I can't remember.
Ghost in the Shell.
That's it, Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just that style of anime or animation, for some reason, just the way everything's drawn, it just has never really appealed to me.
It's almost like it's you get kind of spoiled on like kind of like a Pixar animation where it's like really,
I guess
good.
So,
and then you go back, and because of the style, it's not jerky per se, but because of that style, it's super fluid like other stuff. And I get what you're saying. All right, guys. Well, thank you guys for coming and hanging out with us this Monday and bearing with us while we kind of ramble our way through this show. If you had any ideas about how you're motivating yourself or challenging yourself to do better in your writing or be more productive, leave it in the comments of the video and let us know, and we can have a conversation down there. Come over and join us on Facebook, Keystroke Medium. We're the only one out there, so if you Google us, all of the shows you're going to get are us. So come out and hang out with us on our Facebook group. Thank you for hanging out with us live. If you're listening to the audio version, youtube.com/Keystroke Medium. You can view us live Monday mornings, Thursday evenings, and Tuesday mornings with Walt Robillard on Coffee and Concepts. It's a fun little show. And thanks for hanging out with us. We will be back next Monday. We're going to talk about some reading. We're going to talk about some writing, and of course, everything in between right here on Keystroke Medium.
Later, folks.